Okay, I'm going to make this extremely quick. I am not going to make this a very long video because there's really no point. When YouTube monitors and throttles videos and stuff, there's really no point in making this too long. So I'll just talk about a couple of things really quickly. I was looking at my portfolio today. Obviously, it is up. The Dow shot up to 39,512. Specifically, the catalyst was that Jerome Powell claimed that there will not be any rate cuts, and they're going to allow the economy to go as it is because they claim inflation is, it's still being pesky. Let me just say it like this, and this has been a theory that I've had for a while, and you've probably seen me say this a couple of times on my channel. As long as America is still warring with Russia and China, they are not dropping these interest rates. And that's the bottom line. Now, the sad thing about it is if you come up with a conspiracy theory, and nowadays I don't even think anything's really a conspiracy theory. I mean, everything that we had theories about and said it was a conspiracy theory, all of that's come true. I mean, you had lockdowns worldwide. You had people being forced to take vaccinations. You had the government cracking down on free speech. I mean, all of the conspiracy theories became conspiracy facts. So I can't really call it a conspiracy theory. The problem is I can't prove it because it's not like I can get Jerome Powell in my house and have him under a hot light and force him to tell the truth. That's not going to happen. So basically, you can only go with what you see in the news. So the bottom line is that's my theory. As long as America is at hostilities with China and Russia, which for the time being, it looks like that's what it is, they ain't lowering these interest rates. Now, I will also say something else I've typed on, because, I'm on the internet typing and arguing with people all the time. Like, I type this stuff, all the stuff that I say, I type it into Yahoo on the comment section. I always get some asshole who wants to argue with me. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Blah, blah, fucking blah. But anyway, basically I was saying, first of all, as long as we're still in hostilities with those two countries, they are going to keep interest rates right where they are. The second thing is that Americans are addicted to low interest rates. When interest rates are 3% or lower, that's when you see us spending the most money. Now, the reason why credit card debt is going up so high right now is because underemployment is really a big thing. And when I say underemployment, what I'm saying is people are working multiple jobs because one job just isn't enough to, pay all the bills. You know how you got these people marching and screaming, we need a living wage. The bottom line is housing has become so unaffordable that one job really isn't enough to keep yourself afloat in most cases, especially if you want to live in these big liberal blue cities. One job just isn't enough. The average rent here in New York City, if you're in like Manhattan, is like $5,500 a month. The average starter house here is more than $1 million in some case. Like when I say starter home, I'm talking about a regular looking house where you can just come in, turn the key, move in. That's like $1 million. Especially if you want it in a decent neighborhood. Now, if you don't mind living in like a former crack house, a shanty, a slum, if you don't mind living there, yeah, you're still looking at $500,000. And I've showed you Zillow before, so basically it's the reality. It's like the only time you find anything for like $200,000 or $300,000 is if it's like an empty lot and it's in the ghetto. Like, and when I say the ghetto, I mean the real ghetto here, where it's like, the house next door is selling crack rock. And the other house next door, you got gangsters and thugs, and they looking to sell crack rock too so that they can buy Dodge Chargers. But that's the reality here. That's just the reality. So they're not changing these interest rates no time soon. Americans are addicted to low interest. It's not going to happen. What I've noticed is that the car companies, the automotive companies, have started trying to decrease the lease prices and the lease rates so that this way they can give you an incentive to buy these cars. In general, ICE cars, EVs, whatever. Now, as far as financing goes, financing is a nightmare. You're still looking at 6 and 7% interest. So the only thing that they can do is they can try to knock a little bit off of the sticker and try to sell these cars because they know that they got the 2024s and they got the 2025s eventually going to come in. So they have to eventually get these 2023s off the lot. And these 2023s, in most cases, are not selling. And they're not selling, number one, because the interest rates are damn near 8%. Most people have shitty credit. So that means that, no, instead of it being 8%, now you got to charge more. I'm going to end this portion just by saying this. If you're trying to look for a car right now, you better have cash money and you better have your checkbook. So if you go into one of these dealerships and they're about to run your credit and you know your credit sucks, the best thing you can do is come there with your checkbook and let them know up front. It's like, yeah, well, I've got this $5,000, I got this $10,000 check. You got $10,000, $5,000, whatever it is, $8,000, $7,000. Make sure that they understand that you've got that check. And when they run your credit and they find out your credit sucks, they're going to say, oh, well, could you get a cosigner and all that bullshit? And tell them, oh, no, I can't get no cosigners at all. No cosigners. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to thank you for your time, shake their hand, and say, yeah, I'm going to get up with my check and leave. Then they're going to say, no, wait, hold on. Sit down, wait. You don't have to go just yet. Let me just go get my manager. They'll go talk to the manager. The manager will come back and try to squeeze you, and they'll try to get you to find either another cosign or whatever. All you got to do is just say again, listen, I don't want to waste your time. I thought it would go a different way, but it's not. So I'm going to just take my check. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to leave. I guarantee you they will make a phone. They'll make one call or two calls. They'll make their calls. Whether if you're at Kia, they'll call Kia over in South Korea or whatever. If you're at Hyundai, they'll call Hyundai. If you're at GM, they'll call. They ain't letting you leave out of there with that check. They're not letting you leave. They will make a deal. And if they try to switch the car, you can't afford this Hyundai Santa Fe, so we're going to give you this Tucson instead, and we can make the deal work. No. You know what? Listen, I'm sorry to waste your time. I'm going to get up, and I'm going to take my check, and I'm going to leave. And, they ain't letting you leave. They will sell you that if you wanted that Santa Fe, they'll sell you that Santa Fe. They will. Because the thing about it is, when they see cash at this point, they're not letting you walk out of there with a check because they know the second you walk out of there, you ain't coming back. And that's the fact. So the car market is a little bit flexible. What's not flexible is the housing market. I know people right now who are looking for houses, people who didn't buy a house when I told them to buy a house. I said, listen, y'all need to buy a house right now. And it's not just one couple. It was more than one couple. Two couples at least. There was a couple of people who were singles. I was like, yeah, you need to buy a house right now. And I told them this back in 2017. I had no idea COVID was coming. I had no idea the lockdowns were coming. I just said, listen, y'all need to buy a house. Because I was like, wait a minute. The housing market is slowly going up. I see inventory, like these places that I'm looking at, the lowest priced inventory that I'm looking at, I'm seeing these places getting bought up. I'm seeing, bids going down on them. I was like, yeah, y'all better act now. But of course, I'm talking to people and they're thinking, oh, yeah, no, we're going to move into our $700,000 dream home and all this bullshit. And sure enough, right now, living with their parents, right now. Now, you got 40, 44, 45-year-olds living with their parents. I've told you the story about the eagles. When you got eagles and the eagles get ready to lay eggs and they're going to hatch some eaglets, you know what they do? They go out and they get all the soft materials they can find. They tear animals up. They take their soft fur. They put that in the nest. They take soft wood pieces that have been softened up by the rain and everything. They put that in the nest. They make the nice soft nest so that they can have those baby eaglets, right? And when those eaglets are born, they go out, they kill other animals, they bring them back, they feed those baby eaglets and everything. They make sure they get nice food and everything. But eventually those eagles look at each other and they're like, you know what? This motherfucker's got to go. You know why? Because he got to go out there. He got to go be an eagle. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop feeding them. So the eagles stop going out and they stop hunting. They stop getting the food. They stop bringing it back. So they say, yeah, we're going to stop feeding them. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take all the soft, downy fur and all that. We're going to take all that stuff, the soft niceness, and we're going to take all that out of the nest. And we're going to leave that eaglet in there with sharp thorns and prickly spikes and anything that'll stick him right in his ass. And that eaglet eventually gets the message. They're like, you know what? They're really making this uncomfortable for me. I think it's time for me to go be an eagle. So they make sure that they train that eagle to fly, and they train him to get him out that nest, get him, yo, listen, it's time to go. It's time to go. Humans are like the only animal that got their babies living up in their house 30, 35, 40, 45. And then when somebody questions them on it, because like, you know, your Aunt Linda questions, they're like, wait a minute, don't you think it's time for Kevin to move out? Because Kevin's got to go be like an adult or something. Oh, well, the economy is so harsh right now. And, you know, it's so hard to get an apartment. And it's so hard to find a house. And, you know, Kevin's not married. So, you know, I'm going to keep Kevin right here in the basement. Kevin's going to stay in the basement. And Melissa's going to stay upstairs in the attic. And that's what, and the eagles never leave the nest. And they stay right up in there. And then they get lazier, and lazier and lazier and lazier. Why do you think you hear about all these cases in the news where you got these children killing their parents, or not even children? You got like adolescents wiping out their families and everything because they're losing their minds. They're like living with their parents and they're 40 years old. It's like it's not natural. It's not supposed to happen that way. But you know what? It is what it is. Now, I'll tell you the last thing I'm going to say. These Generation Z kids, their Congress has failed them. They've allowed TikTok to turn their brains into mush. These Generation Z kids, most of them are not going to be able to even get a decent job because it's going to get replaced by ChatGPT. They're going to get replaced by AI. These kids have like nowhere to go. They have nothing to do. They're going to be future renters forever, most of them. Like very few of them are going to make enough money where they can actually survive in the housing market. Because you got to remember, even if they do better than the other Generation Z kids, they're still against a bunch of millennials who are trying to buy up all the property. They're still up against BlackRock. They're still up against multinational corporations buying up property. These are Generation Z kids. Very, very few of them are ever going to own anything. The only thing they're ever going to own is what their parents die and leave to them. That's why most of these kids, they're walking around looking at their parents like they're walking lottery tickets. Walking lottery tickets. That's what when they look at their parents, that's all they see. They see a walking lottery ticket. And then the sad thing is, when you have a bunch of these kids and they're all living in that house because they never went out and they never became eagles. Now, when somebody dies, now they've got to fight for the inheritance. Or the house, is one house, but there's like two or three of them. So you got to split it up, right? So now you got all these fights over inheritance, and you're hearing about it more and more and more in the news. You hear about it like almost every week you hear about it. It's getting nasty out there. So you know what? I talked about that enough. I ranted about that enough. So I'm going to go through just a couple of these things really quickly that I had told you. Like, first of all, Microsoft, I had been telling you about this a long time ago. I was like, I told you my index, man, goat. Microsoft, Apple, NVIDIA, Google, oil stocks, Amazon, and Tesla. Like, they had their Magnificent Seven. I had mine. I had man, goat. And then I added Micron, AMD, Logitech, Intel, TSM, and a couple of others to it, right? Small ones like Walmart and this, that, and other. So basically, with the Dow basically about to hit 40,000, because you can pretty much bet that either this week or next week, it's probably going to cross that 40,000 threshold, right? All of these things are up for the most part. Tesla's still below $200, but for the most part, Amazon, Google, all the rest of them are pretty much up. Tesla's still in the green for me. AMD dropped down from its $227 high, which basically, in my opinion, AMD's always been undervalued. AMD set at like $50 for a long time, and I considered it undervalued. So I was telling everybody, I was like, yeah, you should buy AMD, you should buy Logitech, and you should buy Micron and, TSM and NVIDIA. But this was a while ago. NVIDIA blew up and started dragging everybody else with it. And then all of a sudden, all these fake-ass journalists and these artificially intelligence-created bullshit articles, they start setting price targets. I was like, wait a minute. Y'all don't even know what you're talking about. You don't know what NVIDIA is. You don't know what NVIDIA does. I buy NVIDIA products. I know who they are. I know what they do. I know what they make. You guys are setting these price targets, and every time you set a price target, it's like a line in the sand, and they just cross over it. And I'm like, that's because you don't know what you're talking about. NVIDIA blew up faster than I expected. NVIDIA hasn't even released the RTX 5000 series cards. Let me tell you something, for anybody who knows what I'm talking about. As soon as that RTX 5090 comes out, I'm building a new computer. I'm going to have the 15900K, the new motherboard for the 15900 series, because you can't use those with the 1400 series, the 14000s. So I'm going to build a 15900K, brand new motherboard, 1000-watt PSU, probably the Asus Thor. What else? I'm getting that RTX 5090. I don't care if it's $2,000. I got the money. I want the RTX 5090, and I'm getting the DDR5 memory is cheap, so I'm gonna have 64 gigabytes of DDR5 instead of the usual 32 that I usually do. And that's what I'm gonna have. But see, these people don't know what they're talking about. Like they say AI, but they don't even know what they're talking about. They can't tell you what if you ask the average one of these stupid journalists, what is DLSS or what is RTX, most of them can't tell you. Not unless you're talking to somebody who's like a tech nerd on YouTube. But these journalists, a lot of these articles, they don't know what they're talking about. I read them and I follow what they're saying, but I can tell right away, I'm like, wait a minute, this wasn't written by a person, this was written by AI. It may have been cleared by a person, but these people don't know what they're talking about. So anyway, I was telling y'all for the longest about Micron. Now, Micron just released their earnings today. Micron, from what I heard, beat earnings. So Micron right now is $96, but because of after-hours trading, Micron is right now at $108. When it opens in the morning, it'll be at $108. Now, I don't know if people are going to sell when it opens in the morning and capture gains. I don't know, because I don't know, who's got, puts and calls and all that. But the bottom line is, what else? Micron is doing great. I was telling you about Micron a long time ago. I was telling you about Micron like way back when it was like under like $30. Micron makes Crucial memory, and that's like the memory company that I've always bought memory from. So when I wanted to invest in Crucial, I was like, oh, wait, you got to invest in Micron. So I was like, okay, I'm going to invest in Micron. My shares have just gone through the roof. My entire portfolio has basically just gone through the roof. Oil prices are going up. I've been telling y'all about that. I've been taking pictures in my chat. I've been showing people, like, yeah, oil prices like $4 and something right now. I was like, yeah, oil, gas, all that stuff's going up. And the thing about it is, if you have been holding oil, then you've been getting the dividends at least. If you've been holding gas companies, you've been getting the dividends. Like I got my K1. That's like a form for my taxes. I got my K1 from Sunoco, and I did pretty well with Sunoco stock. I did well with Valero, BP, what was it? Sunoco, Texaco, Exxon. I didn't buy Occidental like Warren Buffett did, but I bought just about every major gas station I could when they went negative and they hit zero. I bought every gas station. I bought Oil Drilling. And all of those things were like pennies on them. They were penny stocks because the shit went negative. This was back in 2020. And I was telling everybody, yeah, you'll need to buy this oil. Well, some people listened, some people didn't. So anyway, Stellantis is still continuing to make record highs. I find that amazing, considering right now it's like they're facing a revolt from the Dodge Charger, Dodge Challenger crowd. But my Stellantis shares are doing great. Ford could be doing way better, but I've never really expected much out of Ford over the last 5 years. I mean, they did hit like 25. What was it, 25.19? I think they should have done better. But what else? I have Ford, Stellantis, and GM. GM is at $42. They've been steadily moving from 33. I was telling you about them, months ago when it was $33. So they've been steadily moving. I'm holding GM, holding Ford, holding Stellantis. All of them pay a dividend. There's crypto, but I'm not going to talk about that because as I said in the last video, I refuse to have any of my money held hostage. And as far as I'm concerned, that shit is a roach motel. So I'm not talking about it. At this point, it can go up, it can go down. I don't even care. It's like when I'm getting these dividend payments regularly all year round, that's all I care about. I don't care about nothing else. So anyway, is there anything else worth talking about? I don't think there was anything else. Well, these airlines are a fucking mess. What's funny, I'm surprised Boeing's stock hasn't collapsed more. But military industrial complex like Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, it's like those are kind of worth buying because not only are they too big to fail, they are military industrial complex. They don't care if the doors fly off the planes. The bottom line is they build missiles, they build engines for helicopters that are the freaking F-18 engines. They build all that stuff. So the bottom line is they're military industrial complex. They're too big to fail. America's government is handing them blank checks to build garbage like the F-35. It's like they just are, especially Lockheed Martin. That's why they're at 440 right now. So you could buy into airline stock, but you got to understand airline stock isn't profitable because none of the airlines are really profiting right now. They're really not. They're trying to recoup a lot of money they lost during COVID. All of them are, down, from what is it, like for the last 5 years, you look at 2020, they're not doing as good as they were. That's the reality. They're just not. Even Delta. Delta has always been pretty good. Delta pays like a little dividend, but Delta, American Airlines. I mean, all of them are having issues. I mean, look at the downward trajectory. You can buy the stock cheap. Yes, JetBlue, American Airlines. You can buy the stock cheap, but I really don't think that's the best place to maximize your money. For the most part, the energy stocks really are a better place. I figure the energy stocks, oil stocks, basically banks, and then there's the credit cards. Can't mark off those credit cards: Visa, MasterCard, and Visa, MasterCard, and American Express. I've held those. They've done nothing but go up. I mean, just look at the trajectory. That's Visa right there. That's Visa. I've been holding that for a long time. That's MasterCard right there. Look at that. MasterCard is $500. So, it's unmistakable. It's just unmistakable. And then there's American Express, and American Express is like that. So every time you hear a story about the American people drowning in credit card debt, yeah, every time I hear that story, I come back to these three stocks and I just look at them just to make sure that line keeps going up. Because that's basically exactly the reason why Americans are drowning in credit card debt, and they are the reason why that line keeps going up. They're the reason that line is green. That's just what it is. I'm sorry. See, I tried to tell people, it's like, listen, if you're going to use your credit card, you got to pay it back immediately. I got people arguing with me. Oh, you don't have to pay it back every night. You don't have to pay it back every other night. And I'm like, wait a minute. I have an 850 credit score. Why are you telling me anything? Like, why am I listening to you? You don't. I do. Oh, but you don't really have to pay it back every night. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, okay, fine. Well, you be happy with your little 530, and I'll just keep doing what I'm doing, collecting my rewards points. And right now I've got like $1,200 in rewards. When you see me in Bora Bora, don't ask me how I got there. Don't ask what am I doing there. Don't ask how I got there. When you see me later in Bali, and you see me in Singapore, and you see me business class on Japanese ANA Airlines, and I'm sitting on what is they call the room. When you see me, don't ask me how I got there, because all I'm going to do is point back to these videos and say, sit down, shut your mouth, and watch and listen.
To be continued.